welcome, welcome. If you're just coming on, go ahead and join the chat, and if you'll share the information of where you are, who you are, where you are, and what percentage of your workforce is still working from home, that would be great. And if you'll make sure that you're sending all your chats, because I will be asking you to do quite a bit of chatting today. That sounded a little strange. If you'll make sure that the send to says to all panelists and attendees. So yeah, if you'll make sure you change that, because by default it's panelists. Okay, some of you have heard me say that about 3,000 times now, so we'll move on. Welcome to what might be the new normal for a little while for us. One of my colleagues took this picture of Denver International Airport over Memorial Day weekend. He did travel, which I thought was very brave of him. And this was a very, very unusual scene at Denver International Airport over a holiday. And so this might, I think it'll change a little bit, but you know, we're definitely looking at a new normal for a little while. We had to pivot very quickly. I'm going to open a poll and get your insights on two questions. And one is just your guess, what you think the next 6 months will be for your association, and what do you find most challenging leading a virtual team? So I'll leave that up there for you to read through. So again, two questions for you to look at. Great to see you all logging on and continuing the chat. So it'll be interesting to get a pulse check on where you think the next 6 months will look, what you think the next 6 months will look like in a virtual or less virtual environment, and what do you find most challenging? By the way, I'm assuming that most of you either lead a team right now or lead a project team or will be in the near future. If you don't, that is perfectly okay. Just know that most of this content is really focused on folks that do lead teams or project teams. All right, I'm gonna leave the polls up for 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll and share the results. It looks like, and you probably can read this the same as I can, most of us believe that in the next 6 months, there will be this mix of team members working from both home and office. About 8 of you said, actually, in the next 6 months, we'll probably bring most people back. So that is good news. That is good news. I won't read every single one of these because you all can read faster than I can talk. Let's look at what you find most challenging. And the number one answer is that lack of impromptu, the casual conversations, the, you know, just bumping into each other, maybe not literally, but running into each other in the break room, in the hallway, and just that lack of the casual but very important conversations. The second one was that 15 of you say it's harder to coach over the phone. Absolutely. I'll give you some pointers today. Harder to coach. 10 of you said that lack of team cohesion, the spirit and the morale, and 5 of you said, I'm not sure if my team members are working much. Yikes. Okay, so that's a different conversation, but we're going to give you some tools on how to have some of those conversations. I want to share a statistic I found in Fortune magazine that is very similar to what how you all felt about bringing employees back to the workplace in the next 6 months. So only 27% of CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies, only 27% think that by fall, we will have most of our workforce back in the office. And so most is 90%. And so really most CEOs saying, you know, really not until next year will we have everyone back. That might be slightly different for Farm Credit. I just think that this year is going to be different. Like you all don't know that. sharing something that you don't know. A couple things on our Zoom webinar. So you are in a webinar format. You are automatically muted. And so what I'd love for you to do is use chat for the most part. And again, I'll say it again because we're going to use chat a lot. Please make sure that you're sending your comments and questions to panelists and attendees. You have to change that little to blue bar. And so everyone gets to see your great comments and questions. Be ready to participate. There's chat, there's polling. This is not a 1-hour lecture. For those of you that have participated in the past, hopefully you know that by now. I would like to introduce myself. I am someone who has worked remotely for much of the last 11 years. When I joined Farm Credit Services last year, I actually went into the office for the first time in a long time, and it was wonderful. So I'm one of the directors and senior leadership consultants. My name is Jeannie Clinkenbeard, speaking to you from Denver, Colorado at home, and I would love for my colleague, Michelle, to jump on and say hello. And she is also in Denver.
Yes,
and
hello, thank you.
Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Jeannie. I am here working in the background, so I'll help with any chat messages and, making sure we're looking at questions and great comments to share with the group. And I am also coming from Denver, as Jeannie mentioned, so I hope wherever you are, the weather is as beautiful as it is here.
It is beautiful. We kind of jumped into summer. It's 90, it's supposed to be 92 today, so that's a little bit of an early summer. So great to have you all join us. Michelle is going to, backed by popular demand, going to have another complimentary webinar on servant leadership later this month. So that you should have received that information. Also, that's always on our website, FCC Services. So look for that if you didn't get a chance to participate in that. So I want to share some good news about virtual leadership. Virtual leadership is good leadership. And what I mean by that is good leadership is good leadership. It doesn't really matter the context. The fundamentals still apply. Being trustworthy, do what you say you're going to do, having clear communication and inspiring messages to your team. All of that applies. In the virtual world, it has to happen by design. Things don't happen by accident when people are working at home. So extra effort, extra focus on all the things that matter being a leader, and we're going to talk about a lot of those today. Just know that there's not anything fundamentally crazy different, except for maybe a little technology boost when it comes to virtual leadership. So would love for you to leave here with a few practical tools, a few practical or 1 or 2 commitments. It's a 1-hour webinar. It's not meant to cover everything you ever need to know about virtual leadership, but I would define success for you if you made 1 or 2 commitments to do things maybe differently or continue what you're doing well. So what do those things look like? I'll share with you a quick overview and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper. And the first sort of the big idea is the virtual leader supports the whole. And what that means is the team as a community. It is really vital that we feel part of a bigger context. We're not at home working in our little islands, because it really feels like that sometimes, that ultimately we're still part of whether it's a team, a department, or an association as a whole, we're part of a community. That's really important to feel that. And that also the virtual leader supports the individual. That we show up to work, we do what we can, and we're still human, especially in this time of a little bit of added stress, or a lot of added stress. So I want to give you some ideas on how do you support both the whole and the individual person and performance as we move forward. One note, please put any questions that you have in chat. There's also a Q&A function because we're in the webinar function, so you can use the Q&A. Mostly Michelle and I will be watching the chat, so please at any time put a comment, put a chat. We'll be in and out of there watching that as we go along. Okay, so let's look at some ways that you can really foster that team community. And before that, I want to share a quick story. A friend of mine worked as a remote team member for about 3 years, and he was okay for the first year, and the second year, and the third year, he was really starting to feel just a complete lack of connection. And I asked him one day, I said, you know, what's going on? What's happened recently? And he said, you know what's weird? In 3 years, I've never met my coworkers. I've never seen them. I don't know what their faces look like. We talk on the phone, and I've never met them, and I've never felt fully part of a team. I thought that's really fascinating how important that connection is. And so as far as your associations, you probably have a little bit of a different experience because most of you have at least seen each other. But that may change as you're hiring people remotely. So what can we do to create that community? Let me share 4 things really quickly, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper. One is to set up those norms. What are some expectations that we have of each other? 2 is, how do you as a leader provide a little more structure, not less, in the remote world? And I promise you, it's not micromanaging, it's needed. Little more structure, not less. How do we celebrate successes? That's an important part of any team. And how do we invest, and what tools do we want to invest in to help our collaboration to help us do the work we need to do, whether that's project management, file sharing, or document sharing? What kind of tools can we look at? So we'll talk about using technology to actually help create that community. Let's dive into setting up team norms. How many of you, I probably won't see, but raise your hand if you have Zoom fatigue. It's a thing, it's a real thing. So what did our team do last week? We literally talked about changing a little bit how we do our Zoom meetings, because we have a lot of them. We need to have them. For the most part, they're great, and they're still fatiguing. And so we agreed with each other, saying we don't have to always be on camera. Most of the time we are, but we don't have to. And by the way, if I am on camera and I look away, it doesn't mean I'm not listening. So having those conversations about what do you expect from each other? Here are just some possibilities. How often you need to check in as a team? Do you need a few hours of guaranteed contact? I don't think it's realistic with kids at home and pets and other spouses and partners working from home. I don't think it's realistic that every team member is going to work 8 to 5 straight. I do think if there's an hour during the day that you're like, I've got to be able to get a hold of you, that's a fair request. But if it's not needed, then it's not needed for your team. Pick what works for your team. What tasks take priority? Again, that clarity about what's most important right now, having those agreements with your team so it's not up for, it's not this sort of vague uncertainty, that it's a very clear path forward. So I'm going to hush for a minute and ask you all, what team norms have you set up with your teams, or which ones would you like to consider bringing forward with your team? So what expectations have you all discussed, agreed upon with your team? Would you put that in chat? And again, if you would, if you would make sure that you're sending it to panelists and attendees, that would be great. I love that. Andrew says weekly team huddles, and it's just checking in. And I shouldn't even use the word just. It's importantly checking in with your team and no work talk. I love that. Dennis says each morning to department wishes each other. Oh, I love that. So a nice morning greeting. Jerry says we do have weekly meetings. Excellent. Thank you. And Jason, we're going to talk about those one-on-ones. So wonderful that you're already doing that. Is there anything within your team meetings that you have agreed to do or not to do? Yep, looks like some more of you are having social meetings. And by the way, I won't read every chat. Don't worry, you all can read faster than I can talk. I'm just pulling out some of them, and it doesn't mean that, wow, those are always the best ones. They're just the ones that yeah, so some of you are really letting social be part of it, fun be part of it. Okay, and Jerry, you use Skype, so we're going to talk about, thank you, we're going to talk about tech tools later. You use Skype for, okay. I like that, the battle rhythms, yeah. All right, wonderful. So if you haven't had this discussion, and it can be a casual, it doesn't have to be this formal, very, it can be, hey guys, what's working, what's not working? Is there anything we need to change about the frequency of our meetings, how our meetings are being run, even simple things like you don't always have to have your camera on, but most of the time we'd like it, simple things like that. And Andrew says virtual happy hours. Thank you for ending on that note, Andrew. And do people have an adult beverage with them if they want to? Is that an okay thing? Okay, you know what, and that would be a team norm, like literally discuss that. Okay, great. Excellent. Oh, okay, I do have to share this just in case you weren't reading it. Jason says we start and end weekly meetings with something fun or positive. How cool is that? Okay, lovely. Moving on. Another way to foster that team community, that sense of connection, is to actually provide a little more structure rather than less. And really that's because of that lack of impromptu running into each other in the hallway. I keep using that visual of running into each other, but you all know what I mean. There's no break room, there's no coffee machine, there's no water cooler that people are chit-chatting by. And by the way, that chit chat is really important, and it does not happen unless we design it, unless we create the meetings or reach out on Skype or reach out on, or texting. So here's an interesting statistic. I want you all to think about this and share in chat. Often new supervisors make really good virtual leaders. Any ideas why? New supervisors who might be, I don't want to give it away. Lisa said they don't have bad habits to overcome. Okay, I'll give it away a tiny bit. They might be in the office, they might come across as micromanaging a little bit. But what happens in the virtual world where everyone's working from home? Like, so quite a few of you said they're not stuck in bad habits, and that absolutely could be true. But there's something, exactly. Heather, they're asking questions, they're checking in a little bit more. And what might feel a little bit like micromanaging in an office doesn't feel that way in the virtual. So absolutely take sort of your the lead from being a new supervisor in doing a little more checking in, a little more structure. They communicate more. Exactly, Jason. They're not afraid to ask questions. So let me provide some possibilities for you to consider. Some of you may be already doing some of these. Wonderful. Really emphasize clarity. Clarity around who's doing what by when. Remember, there is no impromptu meeting in the hallway. Like, hey, what are you working on? Oh, I thought, oh, okay, that's good to know. Those are gone. Those don't happen. So make sure that in your meetings, someone's taking notes and sending those notes after. Who's doing what by when? As much clarity as possible. By the way, in Zoom, you can pull up a whiteboard and take notes during the meeting. It's a beautiful thing. If you're not doing that, please consider having that visual note-taking during the meeting. Here's another thing to consider. Integrate efforts by being a hub or delegating someone else on your team to be a hub. I'll give you an example. So at FCC Services, the group of us that are in leadership development, we are obviously doing webinars. We've been doing webinars. However, so are Leslie, our VP over governance. She's also doing webinars for board members. Jay Lux is also doing webinars in the organizational effectiveness group. So we're all doing these webinars, and honestly, I didn't know Leslie was until we met. Like, oh, we need to coordinate. And so we became this hub that works a little bit closely together that honestly may not have happened if we're all working in the office, ironically. So try to create those hubs where those make sense. And that also applies to checking in with your peers. So these are a little different from you and your manager or you and your reports, but check in with your peers. What are you working on? Where can we work together? Where can we collaborate? So these are some areas of structure. If you've got additional ones that you'd like to share, please add those in chat at any time. And then also answer this question. For those of you with new team members, this is a tough time to hire people, and yet I know some of you are because I've talked to some of you. What are you doing to meet their needs for virtual onboarding? How are you meeting that interesting challenge? So those of you that are in the hiring process, how are you doing virtual onboarding? Good for you, Andrew. And it is going to take hours. Remember, for new employees, they don't have anything else to do unless you're giving them some things to read or learn, or yeah, blocking out hours. Yep. Good for you. So Michelle and I have a new vice president who started right in the middle of this. We have not met her. Michelle, have you seen? I've never met Lisa face to face, but I feel like I know her very well through the Zoom calls.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Michelle, have you seen her at the office at all?
No, the only time I met her was during the interview process, and it was brief.
Okay, so you got a chance to see her during the interview. Good. All right, I'm reading. Jason just did a virtual meet and greet with our new interns. Wonderful. So hopefully using the camera. Okay. So if you all are in this scenario where you're hiring and onboarding virtually, please take a minute and read through again. I'm not going to read through all the chats because there's lots of great ones, and I'm going to miss some, but just know that there's some good information there. Excellent. Okay. So yeah, we've done a lot of Zoom meetings with with Lisa. Definitely know her as through the camera. All right, what's another way you can foster team community? Celebrate those successes. The successes might be a little bit different, and we still need to celebrate both the team and the individual. Both are important for different reasons. And my experience with Farm Credit is we do a great job with the anniversaries, celebrating people's work anniversaries, celebrating if someone finished a degree. They went back to school, finished a degree, they got certified in something. Those are wonderful times to celebrate. And we've got to also celebrate what we've done as a team. Did we meet a goal? Did we exceed customer expectations? What's a recent or upcoming team accomplishment you could recognize? So I want you to think about what your team has done or will do in the near future that you definitely want to remember to recognize. And also, for those of you that have some good ideas on how to do that, other than just a verbal, hey, that was great, are there ways, interesting ways to do the celebration? Yeah, seriously, Dennis, if nothing else, support the transition to working remotely, because how quickly did that happen? Quickly. Starla wants to honor the conversion to a new system. There's a great opportunity. Lisa shares that a team did a drive-by parade. I would love that. My person's house when they retired. How cool is that? I hope they had their video camera going. It's got to feel good. Rachel shares we had goodie bags with beverages sent to the team members. Nice, for their birthday anniversary. And then do people open the beverages during the Zoom call, or open the snacks? Yeah, okay. So don't open them before our Zoom call. One of the things that I know another Farm Credit Association did, we were working with them to help all their employees identify what values they wanted established. And this this happened before, right before the pandemic. And so we involved all the branches, and they came up with their core set of values, which was really wonderful. It was a great acronym. And then their HR team sent out a gift with the values on a mouse pad. So it's time to get creative and do some interesting things. Yeah, gift cards, you can do those electronically if you want to, or send them. Wonderful. All right, and by the way, if you're the kind of person that says, you know what, this is important, it's not really my thing, then ask someone on your team to remind you. Ask someone to be the cheerleader and say, hey, would you give me a heads up when I need to honor someone or remember someone's work anniversary? Delegate that, but make sure that you're part of it. Okay, I think we already did that one. Okay. We are on our last idea on how to foster team community. And now we do get into the technology. Notice how that was last though. Technology is important, but your leadership comes first. Technology is second. The tools come second. So some of you are going to be very comfortable bringing in new apps, new software. Some of you are going to be not as comfortable. And my one recommendation is, just be comfortable being uncomfortable for a while, because we got to bring in these tools. They do help us get work done. And what I would recommend is, if you haven't already, some of you are probably like, we've already done this, Jeannie. That's great, wonderful. What I recommend is, with your team, sit down and decide what tools you need to, not specifically the software, but what do you need to get done? What productivity do you need? Is it collaborating on documents? Is it in communication? Is it project management, keeping tasks and milestones in our focus? So having an idea of, first of all, what do we need to get done? And then you choose the tools that will help you get there. So let me open up another poll and ask you to share. Excusez-moi. What has been most helpful to you in the last few months? What types of these tools? What do you find you and your team are using almost every week? And Michelle, if I haven't already said this, please interrupt me anytime you see a question or a comment you want to share from chat.
Sure thing.
Okay. All right. So there's about 45 of us on the call today. I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so not a huge surprise that video conferencing has been the lead tech tool, and which is great. That means you all are staying connected, and hopefully visually at least part of the time with the cameras. The next is that instant messaging, the texting. Okay, and then a quarter of you are using some technology for the communication collaboration. So maybe that's a tool or some a type of tool that you want to look at a little bit more. So I will ask, especially for those of you that are using, so we use Basecamp. In fact, Michelle taught us, because she brought that from her last job, her last position in a different company. She taught us Basecamp last week. We're also using OneNote. So for those of you that are using a tool besides Zoom, because we kind of all, most of us know Zoom, what one tool do you find really useful for yourself or your team right now that you would recommend? Yeah, so Lisa likes OneNote also. Yep, sharing the document. So if you look at chat, you're going to see some recommendations. Yeah, so if there's a tool that you don't like, maybe you can, well, put that up there too, but make sure you put, this didn't work for us. Yeah, so a lot of emphasis on Microsoft Teams, OneNote. Lean Kit for productivity. Andrew, is that for you, like for your own, or is that a team, or both? Yeah, and so Maureen also uses Teams and OneNote because she's on our team. Okay, and there's a recommendation for Skype also. So if you haven't already, have a discussion with your team, choose a tool, especially if you know that you're going to be working remotely for a few more months. These tools, honestly, they're surprisingly easy to use. It takes a little bit of playing around with it. You know, think of it as a sandbox. Get in there, play around with it, and it's just part of work, getting work done. I heard something interesting last week, and there was a comment for businesses that says all businesses are IT businesses to some degree. It doesn't matter if you loan money or you make shoes or you're a software platform company. All companies depend on IT to some degree. So get in there, get comfortable, play around with some tools. Questions or comments?
Jeannie, if I could interrupt for just a second, something that is in chat that I think is valuable. So Andrew had mentioned Lean Kit for productivity. I personally am not familiar with Lean Kit, but he also mentioned that they used it for IT, HR, and legal primarily. And I think that's a really good point to bring up, because depending on what department you work in, maybe there is something that's really specific for your team that you can use that, you know, is generally focused towards a specific industry or department. So I think that's a really key point to bring up. So thanks, Andrew, for sharing that.
Absolutely. And some of the software you're going to use as a whole association, you're going to have an account that everyone uses. And then sometimes teams, because I've been talking to different associations, sometimes teams will have their own, you know, we use OneNote. Well, we don't, but we use this. So yeah, so and some of them are not crazy expensive either. So it's just a matter of getting in there and playing with it. So what questions or comments do you have about the four? It looks like I'm missing one of the more structure, less structure. What questions or comments do you have about the four? Because what I'd like you to do, here it is to choose one thing that we've discussed or that you saw in chat from a peer, one thing you're committed to start or stop or continue. You don't have to do all three, just pick one, to foster a team community. What would you be committed to starting, stopping, or doing? One thing. Wow, okay. That's a big commitment. Jason, we're going to follow up and ask your team if they got a goodie bag from. You know, what it's interesting about team lunches, because we have those also. And I highly recommend, you know, anytime you can connect folks together is a good thing. what I have found is that most people don't actually eat lunch. Like, I don't really want to eat lunch on camera. So just keep in mind that you might want to do it, I don't know, either right after lunch or later. If any of you have ideas about the team lunch thing, just me personally, eating on camera is not my thing, but maybe other folks like, who cares? Get over it, Jeannie. Okay, and so B to L, I'm trying to read your cool name, B2LCC, to check in with peers more. Yep, we tend to work on our own. You know, and thank you for sharing and reminding that, because again, you are not going to run into your peers at home. That would be creepy. So take this time, you know, do something different. What a good time to do something different. Rachel says the chocolates and red vines and bumbles were the good item. No one ate. Oh, are these snacks that you sent, Rachel? I may have missed one, sorry. Don't you hate it when someone's coming in at the end of a... All right, as you all keep going, I love care package. I love that name, you know, just sending a care package. What a wonderful gift, thoughtful gift. Yes, Jerry says I'm going to utilize that whiteboard. Excellent. Okay, we've talked about fostering the whole, the team community. Now let's talk about the person. It is perfectly okay to have expectations of work, right? We're all paid to work. There's goals, there's clients, there's business to get done, and we are all part of making that happen. And right now, it is a strange time. And it is time to honor both the person and their productivity together. We cannot do one without the other, especially during this time. And I hope that actually stays for longer. I'll share a quick story about our team meeting. I won't get into any personal details, but we had a team meeting on Tuesday. We have every 10 o'clock every Tuesday. And we were talking about what each one of us is doing. And all of a sudden our VP just stopped us and said, you know what, how are you guys doing? And we just spent the next 30 minutes talking about the world and what's going on. And it was a much needed discussion. And then we went back to talking about work. So people need both, because this is their world. Some of them. Can any of you identify? I love the kid running with the toilet paper. It's like, I got it, no one else does. You know, before COVID, we wouldn't even know what that toilet paper reference, we wouldn't know how funny or not funny it was. But just know that for some of your employees working at home, it is stressful. For some, it's not at all. And you're not going to know that until you check in and ask with them. I'm reading Rachel's spreadsheet. So how do you have them? One-on-ones are a key way to connect, to support, and to coach. And if you're not having one-on-ones, there's got to be a really good reason to not have one-on-ones. So I'm going to share our last poll. So again, if any of you don't currently have a team, you don't have to answer this. That's fine. So this is for those of you that do have a team. How often are you conducting one-on-ones? Okay. And again, if you're off doing email right now, I invite you back to complete a poll about one-on-ones. So I am going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, thank you all. Let's look at it looks like most of you do once a week, and that's what our team has right now, once a week. Quite a few of you have once every 2 weeks, and if that works for you, that's great. One of you was very honest and said never. We'll talk about that. One of you said once a month, and a few of you said ad hoc. That's a little risky, and we'll talk about why in just a minute. So a quick story. In my last company, one of my colleagues who had a different VP, he and worked remotely. So he worked in Dallas. His VP worked in another city. And I was asking him, hey, how's it going? And he said, what's weird? When someone asks me how Mary, who's not her name, his VP, when someone asks me how Mary is doing, I don't know what to tell them. And I said, well, why is that? He said, because I haven't talked to her in 4 months. I said, okay, that is just not okay. Because if you're not checking in with your team members, who is? So he felt very disconnected from kind of what was going on at headquarters. By the way, she was at headquarters and he wasn't. Felt very, very disconnected. So let's talk about those one-on-ones. And hopefully you'll come away with one tip. Sounds like some of you are doing a wonderful job. You keep doing it, and see if there's something in here that you may want to add. Okay, let's talk about first quality is regularly scheduled. Have that consistent rhythm. Once a week, once 2 weeks, that's fine if that works for you. I think once a month is really getting a little, there's too much that can happen in a month. Regularly scheduled, try not to cancel unless it's really important. What message does that send to your team members, having that one-on-one consistently on the schedule? What message does that send? And Rachel has a great idea for a daily email. Y'all can see that at the right above the line. Yeah, Luis, right. It's that they're important, that what they're doing matters, that they matter. Absolutely. I had one manager, I think she had good intention, this was years ago, but she must have canceled 75% of our one-on-ones. And believe me, that sends a whole different message, and she didn't reschedule them. So that was a whole, yeah. Gotcha, okay, got it, Sandy, thank you, I hear you. They don't have to be long. In fact, keep them focused, hour, 30 minutes. If they're going way long, they become a little bit cumbersome. So regularly scheduled, fairly short, but not rushed. And then I would say the most important quality of all is that it focuses on what your team member needs most. It's what do they need to talk about first? What's on their mind, their agenda. They get to drive the content for the most part. If you find that you're doing most of the talking in your one-on-ones, please reconsider how you are framing those. And I want to share some specific ways to do that. So I'm going to show you some scenarios, and all you do is choose A, B, C, D in the 4 scenarios. So this is how do you start? How do you begin that conversation? A, B, C, or D? I'll let you read through. Okay, good. Yay. All right, C is the winner. I was expecting someone to have some fun and say D or or B. Yeah, sure. What would you like to talk about first? In other words, it's your meeting primarily. What's the top of mind? Where do you need some help? So let them drive the conversation by setting that tone right from the beginning. Excellent. Now I want to share 3 of my favorite questions that you can then lead when I say lead, help guide the conversation. Again, it's still their agenda, but what's next? These 3 questions, you may have heard them before, are wonderful for a variety of reasons. I use them for coaching. I use them to debrief when someone's tried something new. What's working? Where are you getting stuck? What could you do differently? These are 3 key questions I'd love for you to put in your pocket as a leader. What's working? Where are you getting stuck? What could you do differently? They are wonderful in so many scenarios. And if you find that you need some guiding questions in a one-on-one, these will work wonderfully. If you're coaching, they will work wonderfully. If you are debriefing, they will work wonderfully. At the end of a project, hey, what worked? Where did we get stuck? What could we do differently? They're wonderful questions. So I want to practice. I think we've got some time. Yeah, a little bit of time. I want to practice. Don't worry, I'm not going to let or make you talk. But I want to show you just how to use it in a very informal way. I want you to think of something new you tried recently. Here are some ideas. Did you try a new recipe last weekend? Are you trying to fix something in the house? Do something in your yard? I want to put some drip systems for my plants since it's already 92 degrees in Denver. So think of something that you're working on, something that could be fairly new. Just kind of have that in your mind. That just makes me haircutting. That makes me, I will never let anyone near my hair or head without a certificate. You all are very brave, very, very brave. Okay, I love that. So I'm gonna ask those 3 questions, and you all answer with whatever you have in mind, whatever topic, new recipe, do-it-yourself, home project, or I was trying this new software, whatever it is. I'm going to ask those 3 questions. Are you ready? All right. What's working? When it came to trying that recipe, what worked? When it comes to trying a house project, what's working? New craft. What's working? What's positive? What made you say, oh, that actually came out okay, that worked? What specifically? John, just think how much money you save. So Mark, I'm thinking that you created a YouTube, like you uploaded a video, which is very cool. Okay, wonderful. Heather's getting better on her guitar, and we actually got a chance to hear her and her daughter play a little guitar. Wonderful. Oh, you are so brave, Lisa. Made her own hamburger buns. I feel like a big slacker. Okay, so again, we're just focused on what worked. When it came to trying that new thing, what worked? One last thing. Oh, thank you all for your humor. I so appreciate it this week. Yeah, cooking more. Okay, lovely. Okay, so now the next question after what worked is, where did you get stuck? So when it came to that same thing, where are you getting stuck? Where did you get stuck? What did not work as well? The sanding. Do you have an electric sander, Anne Marie? That helps. You're a good person. Juggling the need. Okay, Rachel said the need for more prep time. Okay, putting some more time in the beginning. Again, I won't read all of these, but need to make bigger burgers. Okay, I don't know about guitar, Heather, but so it sounds like the F chord is hard. Maybe you have to stretch your fingers more. I don't know. Jerry, some of my plants died also, and I can commiserate. Okay, so again, we're on the what didn't work, or excuse me, where'd you get stuck? What didn't work? Okay, so for time's sake, I'm going to move on to the last one. And what could you do differently? So the next time you try this, or if you're in the middle of this project, what are you going to do differently? What could you do differently? Hire a professional. haven't laughed this long at YouTube everything. YouTube is a beautiful thing when it comes to learning. I have fixed many things using a YouTube video. Try a new recipe, Jason says. Not that same one. Do more research. Yes, that's an ongoing conflict for me, is to do more prep work, do more research. I tend to jump in. Okay, so y'all get the idea. What's working? Where are you getting stuck? What could you do differently? Are three really, really simple, powerful ways to coach your folks. Okay, last question on the one-on-one. What's the best way to end a one-on-one? So A, B, C, or D? Yeah, for sure. What a wonderful question. Any leader can ask, what do you need from me this week? That's huge. That says a million things in one question. What do you need from me to be successful? So if you haven't used that before, try adding that on to the end of your one-on-ones. What do you need from me? And not let me tell you about my golf game. Yeah, it could apply to some folks, and I would say, you know, it's kind of a whole nother webinar, is when the performance is not meeting expectations. Yeah, how to be real clear on the expectations. One thing that I will say in a remote world is having that really, really clear communication on what you do expect will help. And hopefully that will be a discussion and not a one-way leader lecture, but clarity about expectations. Yeah. Okay. All righty. One last, actually, oops, excusez-moi. What else are you doing in your one-on-ones that you would recommend? So something that you learned from another leader, something that you've been doing for a while with your team. What else about one-on-ones that would you like to share with your peers here? We're good on time. We're going to wrap up in just about 2 minutes. Yeah, thank you, Anne-Marie. Asking how they're doing, talking about something outside of work reminds them that you see them as a human being and not just a robot that's performing. Yeah. Rachel says, passing on comments about how the team is viewed. What a wonderful, inspiring, reminding them that what they do matters and that the rest of the association sees it. Thank you. I want to come work for some of your associations, spin the wheel. How cool is that? I love that. Okay, and remember, these are one-on-ones for one team member. These are not can't leave, sorry. These are not team meetings, because both are important, but you got to focus on both. I want to share some upcoming virtual programs that we're offering. These are different from our leadership lessons, which have been a 1-hour complimentary webinars that we've been sharing. So we are going to offer Crucial Conversations as a very well-designed virtual program. It's multiple sessions. You still get the wonderful videos. This is an award-winning program, by the way. We did not design it, but we deliver it. It's excellent videos, great practice opportunities in the virtual breakout room. So that we will be offering soon. Also a Getting Things Done, which will be an online on-demand plus a virtual-led, instructor-led sessions combined. So you get a chance to do some on your own and some with the group. And that's really about productivity and how you're managing your information and your day and your week. And the last one that will come out fairly soon is Crucial Accountability. Speaking of accountability, and that is tied to Crucial Conversations. Michelle will be offering that, and tools to improve accountability and execution with your team members. Not always comfortable in the farm credit nice world, but sometimes very much needed. in those. So you will be getting more information about these, and of course you can always reach out to us proactively if you'd like more information. So this is your ticket out. This is focused on one-on-ones. One thing that you're committed to either start doing, stop doing, or continue doing for your one-on-ones. And if you'll share that, and that's your ticket out. And it has been my pleasure to be with you all. Thank you for your leadership on the behalf of your associations. What you do always matters as a leader. So thank you all. Thank you all. And if you'll share your comment in chat, Michelle and I will hang out for a few more minutes if you do have any questions for us. And have a great rest of your week, everyone.